Hiya, I'm Imogen Partridge. I'm a watercolour illustrator and I'm going to show you how I take one of my original illustrations and scan it in and adjust the colours to create a digital version. So I have done my scan and I'm going to open that up here. So I've scanned it in at 1200 dpi, which is the highest my scanner does. And that creates quite a large file. So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually change the file size. So I've gone to image and then image size, and then I'm changing the resolution from 1200 pixels per inch to 300. So it makes it a slightly more workable file. I don't need it for what I'm using it for. I don't need it to be that large. So the reason I take it into Photoshop is because you can see some of the texture of the paper in the background on this, and the colours aren't quite true to the original. So that's why I'm trying to edit it a little bit. So the first thing that I do is I go to the bottom right hand side where there is an adjustment layer here, and I will select levels. So using an adjustment layer rather than editing the original is quite helpful, because at the end of this I'll explain to you about making a template from this. So my levels here, so if for example I brighten it right up to show you, and then I click on the little eye here and turn it off and turn it back on, you can see that it's not actually editing the image, it's just editing the layer over the top of it. So I'm going to move my adjustments around. You can use these little pipettes to select like the bottom one, you're telling it what you want to be white, for example, and then the top one you're telling it what you want to be black. But I'm not that keen on using those, so I will just do it by eye. So you can see already the paper text just kind of disappeared. But if you're lightening it up, sometimes you might want to move the middle one, because darkening it, sorry, it might basically affect the colour of the thing, so you might just want to move around the central adjustment. Anyway, so I'm pretty happy with that. And then again, another adjustment layer. What I would do next is I would go to colour balance. So the colour balance is something where I will use really subtle changes to just make it more true to the original artwork. So you can see if I even adjust that a tiny bit, well, I'll do 15. It's a very subtle change, but it is a change. So these basically adjust the, or on mid-tones you can do the highlights, which is just the brighter areas, or the shadows, but mid-tone should be fine for this. And it just adds more of that colour into each of them. So I can usually tell, or work it out by eye, if it's a little bit too red, which often they come in a little bit too red, I can just add a bit more cyan, and it just sort of changes the look of it. I mean, this one wasn't actually too bad, so I'm just going to leave it about there. And there we have it. I think the final thing is that you can see that there's some little bits around the image, and there's a few ways that you could do this. You could use the, where is it? I don't want to remember, spot healing brush, here we go, which is on the left hand side, that one that looks almost a little bit like a plaster, and you can just essentially colour them in, all those little dots. Look, here's a big one, and it is pretty good. But in this, because I want most of the background to be white, what I'm going to do is select it, and I'm going to, with the rectangular marquee, sorry, on the top left, that's the rectangular marquee tool, I'm going to select it with a click and drag. So I'll click and drag to select it, and then I will right click and I will say select inverse. I'll make sure I've got the right layer selected, which is the picture itself, and I will just delete. And it asks me what I want the contents to be, and I want it to be white, and I want it to be 100% opacity. So that's it. So that's taken everything. So that's cleaned the whole of the rest of the page now. If you're doing that, you need to make sure that your page is actually white, because otherwise I would have ended up with a slightly different border in there. But yeah, that's fine. So there we go. And then the next thing that I would do, so I would save a copy of that. One thing that I would say is I usually save this as a screen version, and then if I'm editing it for printing, what I will do is I would have a test print, and then I would, if the colour's coming out slightly off, say for example it's coming out a bit oversaturated, so the colours are too vibrant, what I would do is I would go and add a hue and saturation. I would slightly reduce the saturation, which you can see takes the colour away, just very, very slightly. And I would do another test print, and I would see if I was happy with it then. And then I would save that copy as my print copy. So usually the print copy and the screen copy are maybe slightly different. It doesn't always have to be the way. It depends on your printer, depends on your computer, depends on your calibration of all of those things. But yes, that's just a useful thing to know. Finally, what I was going to say was the reason I use these adjustment layers over here rather than editing the original is because if I was then to bring in another scan, thinking of an example, this one should work, I can pretty much use this as a template. So I have a file saved, image size, what did we say, it was 300, wasn't it? I have a file saved called scan template. So now if I bring in a scan, what I do is I take it into here, over my scan template, I paste it in, and you can see that that is the original with all that in the background, and that's it after it's been in the scan template. So because I've got these adjustment layers, it does the same to every single one. So it might not be the same, and I would always check it against the original, and I might need to tweak it slightly, but I've done half the work, if not all of it, by having this template. So yeah, that's just a really useful thing to do. So I just save a copy of the PSD file as scan template. So yeah, I think that's about it. If you've got any questions, just let me know. I'm hello@imogenpartridge.com is my email address, or on Instagram quite a lot, imogen.partridge. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you thought, and if you've got anything else that you would like me to show you.